Hello and welcome to a conversation about values. I'm a filmmaker and storyteller who's had the privilege of covering stories across America and around the world. Human stories of ardor, dissonance, kinship, and grace. With so many stories to tell and too little time to explore them, I created Reason for Being, an honest chat with innovators, meaning makers, businesses, artists, and leaders, evolving vision and values to engage a changing world. Fame or no fame, far or near, people who think different, do it better, and walk their path.
But now, each one of these, we can talk about them, just like you talk about your friend. If something doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean anything. So if you're going to do something, give it meaning. But I mean, in terms of building this particular place and the place that you're sitting in, there's a lot of skills that I guess have culminated over the years to actually make this happen. Starting off with BMX. I was building half-pipe ramps in the backyard when I was 12 years old. So that's when I started using saws and hammers and started playing with that stuff, and I never stopped. So I've built several breweries so far, and I'm always building and learning and building my trade as a carpenter and a craftsman and just a builder in general. So a lot of that just came from my childhood interests and have now been applicable to my present passions.
Yeah, and it's, I guess your handiwork and that sort of tinkering spirit are written all over this room and this brewery. I mean, tell us a little bit about like all this texture that we see in here. I mean, my understanding is it's your handiwork.
That's correct. Everything you see in here is pretty much 100% reclaimed or recycled in some way. We're in a neighborhood, a transitioning neighborhood, an industrial neighborhood that's being remodeled, and a lot of people are pulling out the guts of these old buildings that are circa 1900, and gorgeous, Douglas fir, sometimes first generation Douglas fir or second generation, but really beautiful stuff that people throw away. You'd be surprised. And I live here in the neighborhood, so I either ride my bike or I walk to work every morning, so I'm able to take my time, and see things that maybe other people don't have time to see. I'm always looking for my next little prize that somebody is letting go of. I mean, every piece in here's got a story. Every component, like Boomtown, when they were remodeling, they had a bunch of old wood that they were pulling out of the roof, and they called me and said, "Naga, you want the wood? We're about to have it hauled away to the dump."
Yeah.
And me and my assistant took the truck over immediately and made 10 trips with 25-foot huge beams, with nails and all bent up and hammered together. And we spent, 2 weeks just separating the wood and pulling nails out. And the wood and all these things have spirits, It's not like buying a 2x4 from Home Depot where, it was, the wood comes from a farm somewhere and it was cut down mechanically and had no reverence at all. Whereas all this stuff has a previous lifetime besides being a tree. So it's, everything's been reincarnated in here into something more beautiful and has a new purpose instead of being in the landfill. So I take a lot of joy in that, those trees didn't die in vain. They're still, being utilized.
It's interesting too, because my understanding, again, I know that you do various different beers here, styles of beer, but some of them won't use like wild yeast, right?
Yeah.
Sort of whatever's in the ecosystem, in the sort of traditional farmhouse tradition, right? And so it's interesting that you're even in the design of your space, you're pulling in the environment.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of like a wild. It's an analog to what you do with the beer.
Absolutely.
And it carries over and it feels great. taste some of your beers, and there's layers upon layers. There's earthiness, there's brightness, there's darkness. I mean, it's an interesting blend of flavors, and it's sort of reflected here. And when I stepped foot in here 2 weeks ago, I mean, I noticed it right away. It's unlike, I've been to a lot of breweries in Southern California, and it's unlike most of them. What, in the face of, I know that, you know, the beer scene in California and Southern California is sort of booming, the craft brewer scene. What I love about it is the beers are great, but it also seems like a really convivial, tight-knit community of brewers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you guys don't compete, it doesn't feel like.
Not at all. No, it's quite the contrary, to be honest. Especially even more of the microcosm here in downtown LA. We have now 9 breweries, but we have a DTLA Brewers Association that we meet, you know, monthly, and we do events together. We do barbecues together. So, you know, we build those relationships, you know, on a deep level. And when it comes to, you know, the brewery business, we're all in it together, even though from the outside it looks like we're competing. Right. But we're really not. I mean, if you look at the numbers, you know, the big beers, they have, you know, the big slice of the pie, whereas the craft beers, you know, hovering about 12% or so of the whole beer market. Okay. So you're talking about a small slice of the pie that all of us are operating in. So competing against that big giant, you know, it makes sense to have friends. You don't want to be David and Goliath, you know. Right. But it's really an amazing industry. I can't think of any others in the world that I've ever seen that has that kind of camaraderie and collaboration with your direct competitor, or so it would seem. Zooming out, we live in a world where the bottom line is often the bottom line, which is the almighty dollar. It's the sales. Sure. And while that's obviously part of your business model, I would assume, and any business's business model. Sure. It's what's sort of heartening and interesting to me is the fact that you do go out and take the time to get to know the other brewers, not because you're trying to pilfer any secrets, but just because you want to commune with your community, because you want to go out and get boards that are out in the community, out in the street. It's a very different way, I feel like, of doing business. What do you get personally out of working in that way? I get everything out of that. For me, I mean, I'll be frank, I'm not in this for the money, period. You know, I had a career before this that was a lot more lucrative. And I left that because I was miserable and depressed, and I hated my job. I was in a cubicle, and I was not fulfilled spiritually, emotionally, physically, nothing. But my bank account was amazing, but I was miserable. So what's the point? Right. So I came to, you know, the conclusion that, you know, people lied to me. Money doesn't make you happy. You know, that's not it. It's being happy makes you happy. Right. You know, that's it. For me, I feel so blessed to be at this point in my life and my career where I'm surrounded by so many good people that really love me, and I love them back. And we work together. Like just yesterday, I was brewing at Boomtown, you know, on their big system, because we have just a modest brewing system here. We just got 2 20-barrel fooders in that need to be filled immediately. So my friends at Boomtown gave me their brew house for the day, and they're all there, you know, helping me and giving everything they could, and made it happen because they wanted me to get they were as excited as I was to get those fooders filled up. You know, something that they absolutely didn't have to do at all. They offered, like, hey, how are you going to fill up those giant fooders on your little system? I was like, you know, I'll figure it out. And they're like, hey, do you want to brew on a 20-barrel system? Sure. But, you know, I also, you know, have Easter barbecue with those guys, and when my mom comes into town, she makes dinner for them and takes some pie and stuff. So it's like that, you know. So to work in I can call Indy across the street right now and say, hey, I need CO2 or I need this hops, and they'll just bring it right over. I say, what do I owe you? They're like, don't worry about it, man. You know, so to have that, it's so humbling, and I feel so grateful. It's one of those wonderful confounding things. Yeah, it's cool.
it's like something in the yeast, something in the,
it is
in the ether out there that's bringing people together.
But it's very special. You know, I get a lot of people come into the tap room. They said, "Oh yeah, the guys from Mumford sent us over, or the guys from Angel City said to go check you out." You know, like, who does that? What competitor would send you to the other business? Say, "Oh, go to my competitor's shop and try them out. They're really good." No, it doesn't happen. So it's really a blessing.
I was thinking about you guys, and I was thinking about the brewery, and I brought this book. This is a book called The Art of Possibility. I read this in like 2 days. Transforming Professional and Personal Life, The Art of Possibility by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander. I ran into him a few years ago, and there was a passage in here that made me think of what you're doing here. For years, I struggled to find a sort of a community in Los Angeles, and I got pretty jaded about it, frankly. And I took off, traveled a bit, went across the country, lived in a trailer, and just came back. And so it's really, really awesome to sort of find businesses like yours that stand in opposition to this idea that we're all separate. You know, that we're all sort of in it to win it and for ourselves. But this is a passage that goes, "The order and predictability that civilization strives for supports us to get on with the things that matter to us, like starting companies, guiding our children, studying the stars, or composing symphonies. Yet, because the straight-edged organization of our cities and towns, as well as many aspects of our daily lives, tends to mirror our perceptual maps, urban life may magnify the boundaries that keep us in a state of separateness. Places in the wild draw many of us to experience a vitality greater than our own, but it may take an act of surrender to let the gates give way between ourselves and nature." While we're not in the woods, you know, I find when you talk about wild yeast or living beer, slow beer, all these things, I think, get us to slow down and get us sort of in sort of the wilds of like interpersonal life again. And I think when I was here 2 weeks ago, that's 100% what I felt. And
so that's by design, really, because, you know, I crave that. I think that everybody in this modern age craves that. The more that, you know, digital media assaults us, you know, informed, or even just going like this more every day, there's a part of our spirit that's really being starved to death over there. And, you know, we get really, you know, we get funny, you know, we think that we don't need the spirit, we don't need it anymore. It's like, oh, that's old, we don't need you anymore. We have Instagram, we don't need to take care of the spirit anymore. I don't need you, I have everything right here. I don't need to ask for directions, it's right here. I don't need you to recommend a restaurant, it's right here. I don't need you, I got it right here. Which is not true. And deep down inside, we know that. And people who are more aware absolutely know that. So I built this place for me to keep myself sane, and then I knew that there was other people out there like yourself who also was feeling that way. So where do we go in LA? Where do you take refuge? You know, I mean, you can
Good word for it.
You can go to, you know, I go to the Buddhist temple and meditate, but that's just me. I still want to, you know, be connected to my fellow human beings, which is hard in this city. The city is very hard, fast. People they're on their mission. You know, people need compassion. It's the most important thing in the world. Bigger than love, you know, to have compassion for somebody, to step out of your own ego for a second and say, hey, what does that person need? Or, you know, what is he doing? You know, and to understand that instead of get out of my way. You know, that's the attitude, which is, it's hard on the spirit, you know. So our whole thing at Dry River here is to make a little space where people can reconnect, even with their own spirit and other people on a, I don't want to say spiritual, it sounds weird, but on a real human-to-human kind of level. You know, just to meet somebody new in LA and at a bar is kind of strange, which I find very odd culturally. Like on the East Coast, you know, you go to a bar, you can go by yourself, and by the time you're done your first beer, you have 4 new friends.
Totally, yeah.
You know, and they've invited you to the barbecue on Sunday or whatever, or the football game, whatever. In LA, if you go with your friend to the bar, people, you and him just talk, and then there might be people all around you, but you would never typically interact with them.
Right.
That's
Everyone else is just peripheral.
Right.
Yeah.
They're, you know, if you go, hey man, what's going on? They'd be like, do I know you, or like, what do you want?
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
It'd be very like
Yeah, it's interesting.
odd. So this little space right here, we don't play by those rules. When they come in the door,
Totally.
they want to be recognized as a human being.
Totally.
Hello, you know, like even shake their hand, give them a hug. We're like, what are you doing? Like, this is weird.
Yeah,
like,
and it's not a shtick either.
It's not a shtick.
It's like when my girlfriend and I came in, and we were like, did they just talk to us?
Yeah.
Like, did they just take the time to tell us what beers were on tap and what was unique about them? I was like, that was a first.
But to me, that's so basic. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
totally,
Like,
totally.
As a publican, not a Republican, a publican,
Yeah, yeah.
a person who runs a pub.
Yeah.
Let's not be. Let's not get this confused.
For the record.
Publican.
Yeah.
That's always been, you know, part of my old school training. It's like,
Right,
you know,
right.
you greet people, you make them feel welcome. You want them to feel welcome. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to go out to a place and feel welcome. You know, like, I don't like to feel unworthy to be in some places.
Right.
You know, it's like, excuse me, can I
Right.
get a beer over here? Like, when you're done texting, can you get me
Yeah,
a
yeah.
beer? That's how I feel 90% of the time going out, which is not a good feeling. So,
Totally.
you know, to put that back into practice, and maybe, you know, when you leave Dry River, you'll treat somebody differently. Not that this is our big plan or something, but compassion, you know, if somebody, you know, treats you with compassion or as a human being, you're surprised.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's like, wow, like, oh, I forgot about that. Like, people can be nice. Like, we could be nice to each other. We could talk to each other. We could get to know each other. And maybe I can learn something from you. Maybe I can give you something. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's things to be done.
Yeah.
You know, and we get taken away from that, you know, in the digital world. And I feel like all this tactile kind of thing, I see people come in touching the edges and stuff because they need to.
You know, and it's wild too when you're in here. There's so much to look at and touch and feel. Sort of, there's such sensory experience going on. I mean, I can smell the yeast from where I'm sitting. I can smell what's going on back there, and there's so much going on. It's hard to engage in something digital.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as sort of sensorially interesting.
Sure.
You know.
Well, that's a great compliment.
Oh, absolutely.
If I could beat the cell phone at least for a half an hour or an hour, and you just put it down and you look around and you start talking, you find yourself, oh, I haven't checked my Instagram in 30 minutes.
Right.
You know, that's a success.
Yeah.
Which is it's sad to say.
Yeah.
That way.
Do you think you've sort of always had these innate, these humanistic values, or?
Well, I think definitely an old soul, you know, to begin with. You know, I've always been kind of backward and old thinking, you know.
Yeah.
Like, people are probably going to watch us and be like, this guy's crazy. Like, he's not, you know, whatever. Like,
It's funny though,
he's
I guess.
not up to speed, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
he's behind the times.
behind the times, which is
know.
fine, you know, but
Yeah.
I am an old school guy. You know, I was born in the early 70s, and, you know, we didn't have phones, and we didn't, you know, if you want to talk to your friend, you ride your bike 10 miles and knock on his door and ask his mom, and she goes, no, he's not here. And you're like, okay, and you ride back, you know, like, that was okay.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays that would be insane. It's like, oh, just ride over there and see if he's there. If not, come back. Like, just call him. You know, but you know, that was the kind of world I grew up with, a slower world. But I feel like
same with me, man.
As the world goes faster and faster, I feel I can see, you know, shit flying off. You know, from the centrifugal force. You know, certain things are flying off that we should keep about ourselves, about society, about interaction.
Right.
You know, it's you can see it, what's happening. You know, it's manifesting in all kind of crazy ways throughout society, and I feel like this kind of little project is just, you know, one little drop in the bucket or a butterfly effect, hopefully that will, you know, influence people. You know?
I think so. I think that multiplier effect is slow and steady, you know, one person at a time. But I think coming here and having a beer, just being in a space where people are slowing down a little bit. It's just simple but powerful intervention for the insanity of the day. The presence of mind that you've cultivated, how does that, how do you use that in your work? How does that come to bear? What is your creative process like?
Creative process is, there is no creative process really for me. I mean, it just happens. You know, I'm not trying to say I'm some kind of Buddhist master or anything. I mean, I study my mind. I'm still learning every day. I'm trying to keep that thing still. But just, you know, even getting on board with, you know, training your mind and getting on board with awareness of the mind, starting to watch the mind and seeing its dirty little tricks and all its little hiding places in there. Just that alone, just turning on the light inside and seeing the mess inside the mind is a huge step. You know, if people would just do that, then once you see the mess in there, you're like, holy crap, I gotta get to work in here. In work, you know, the clearer the mind is, the more that you can receive, you know. If your mind's not going, you're gonna do this, you're gonna call that, it's just going nuts the whole day, there's no room for creativity to come in.
So do you slow down enough to talk to your microbes? Do you give them love?
I absolutely give them love. I've communicated with them. They don't talk back, but in their own way they do. But I absolutely do that. I mean, if you've ever,
because they've been around for a while, man. Those things are ancient, right? And
I would venture to guess that they're here from a long time, maybe even from a rock from somewhere else. I mean, those things are incredible. Yeast and bacteria, we wouldn't exist, period, without them.
So you're able to slow down to actually be a part of your process.
Well,
right? I think, and that's what, because you talk about slow beer and living beer, but I guess you yourself have to slow down to like be a part of that process.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not about mass producing. It's not about scale.
No.
You know, to please the master of you know, the market.
I don't care about the master of the market.
Yeah.
I read a book a long time ago that changed my life. It's called The Buddha's Lions, and it was the 12. I think there was 12 masters who became enlightened right after Buddha did, because they were already almost naturally there, and then once Buddha became enlightened and gave them the Dharma, they're just like, bam, they got it. You know, and they were from all different walks of life. You know, from a thief, there was a murderer, there was a carpenter, a metal worker, a winemaker, all kind of different people.
Yeah.
But they all got an instruction to use their work to become their practice, you know. So when you're working, or when I'm working, I try to practice mindfulness, you know, and I teach my staff that as well. When you're washing the glass, wash the glass. Put the mind, and I'm washing the glass. Look at what you're doing, what you're washing the glass. Put your whole mind into that little simple task there, and you're actually meditating. And that 5 seconds that you think, oh, I gotta wash this glass, and it's a total waste, and you're just angry about it, that you still have to wash the glass regardless. So it's up to you whether you can be miserable and just poorly wash it and waste your time, or use that same time to take a couple steps towards enlightenment or mental stability or whatever you want to call it. So if you're washing the glass, you wash it properly and you put it down, and you had that 4 seconds there of mental clarity, and you had that little meditation, and then you say, I'm walking. When you're walking, you're walking. You're not saying, oh, I gotta, and the mind's going nuts. So if you practice like that little by little each day, you'll start to find space in your mind. It'll start spreading out, and there's voices of telling you what to do, and the commentary and all the delusions saying, oh, what if this happens, and what if you can't pay the rent, what are you going to do? Oh, this guy didn't never call you back, and all those voices, they'll start fading back into the background, and then eventually you're like,
perspective.
oh,
man.
thank God!
Yeah.
Shut the hell up!
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like,
so you not only wash the glass, but you wash your mind in
exactly,
the process, right?
Right.
So
no,
it's
it's
the double
huge.
whammy of it. You get a clean glass
huge.
and a clean
And
head.
then you asked about creativity.
Yeah.
If you can do that, if you have even 4 seconds of open space in the mind, the universe has ideas just going nuts. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
So, but you have to have that vessel to catch it in. If there's nothing to catch it in, there's no space and time in your mind. How is an idea going to come in? You're just obsessed with your own ego and delusion. What idea is going to come in there?
Yeah. It's like you're just spinning out in neurosis, you know.
Yeah.
So how would you say, I haven't tried all your beers, I've tried a few of them, but how would you say your values are reflected in your process, right? Your values, your process are reflected in the product? Because we really haven't talked about beer
Right.
Very much, but you know, what you're saying is they're sort of part and parcel of the same. They're coming from your mind, your vision. How is what we taste in your beer reflected? How does that reflect your process?
Well, I can give you a good analogy. The Sequoia, for example,
Yeah.
which is a Sati style beer, which is a old Nordic, I believe, kind of system of making
Filter through
an old tree, a hollow tree.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
I thought it was just through the.
No, they'd actually
needles
hollow
or
the
something.
tree with the needles inside the hollow tree and filter it out
Yeah.
and give you all this amazing flavor
Right.
and pininess and lemon citrus. So I was in Yosemite camping over the Christmas, and you know, we had all these giant snowstorms this year, and a lot of the giants fell down because it was drought and then snow. So one of the big trees fell down, and a lot of the bark had exploded when it hit the ground. And you know, collecting some of the bark, and you know, just the idea just came. It's like, oh, Sati style, like that's 2,000-year-old bark that nobody's ever tried before. Like, let's make a beer out of it and see how it tastes. You know, so that idea just came. You know, because I was in the mountain, I was clear, I was feeling good. I didn't think of that idea and then go into the mountain to collect it. I was in the mountain and having a nice mental, you know, clarity and walking and, you know, enjoying the fresh air, and then the idea presented itself. You know, it was right there, lying on the ground, literally. You know, so people love that beer. Like, oh my God, it tastes like the, you know, like Sequoia National Park, or the, you know, they get it. You know, and it's an amazing.
And it's a sour, huh? Okay.
Yeah, it's a sour, but you know, so that's one example of how it works. You know.
Yeah, this whole idea of working, like, when I hear you say that, I think of, like, there are many ways of working, but you know, to simplify it, there's working outside in, and there's working inside out. You know, and I think a lot of modern endeavor, modern businesses work outside in. It's like, this is what X competition is doing. We need to replicate it.
Yeah.
Or derive something out of it.
Yeah.
Or this is what the customers want. The customers don't even know what they want, but the businesses are listening to this, like, to that crazy mind you're talking about.
Sure.
It's like the appetites are crazy, and so we need to feed all those appetites.
Yeah.
There's that way of sort of building a business.
Sure.
And then there's the inside out way of building a business, which is what I hear when you talk about sort of moments like this.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is, you know, your presence of mind comes together with what's happening out there, what you see out there, what you perceive out there. That inspires something, and then you, inside out, share it with your community. And that's, I know which I prefer, you know, but I think it's an interesting, I feel like it's an interesting lesson that sort of, no matter what the trade or the craft, your chosen sort of, your chosen craft happens to be beer, but no matter what the craft, you can work that way, I would think.
Yeah,
You know, inside out.
It definitely works like that for me. I mean, I always see something in my mind or as an idea, and then it manifests, or you manifest it, you know, into physical reality.
Yeah.
You do that way, but like this project, it wasn't that people were demanding a sour brewery. Maybe they wanted one in LA, but it's not why we built it. We built it because we had to. It had to come out of us. It's just like talk to any chef or artist or musician. Musicians in the shower in the morning, a song comes to him out of nowhere. Where does it come from? Nobody knows.
Right.
He's got to get it down on paper. He's got to get it out. You can't just sit there and it's going to drive him crazy.
Right.
You know,
right.
that creative inspiration is like, hey, manifest me. I want the universe wants this out. Here's the song. Get your guitar, man. We're going to drive you crazy till you get out. Just like this. It's like passion and you know, creativity. You know, bubbles inside you. You have to do something with it. You should.
We're inspired in all different ways, through other people, through our own imaginations, through a fallen tree, and it really is what you make of it, how your perception and your mind meet that event, and what do you do with it? You know, I mean, it's wild to me because I think beer is a great metaphor. Because it's literally like alchemy, right? Zymology, is that a word? Or
Zymergy.
Zymergy, yeah. Sorry. Okay, yeah, so zymergy is like the science of fermentation, is that kind of?
Yeah, it's the whole...
You're basically an alchemist.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, zymergy to me is, you know, setting the table for the yeast, preparing, like if you're going to have a dinner party at your house, you know, with some really honored guests, you want to prepare everything beautifully, the best food, the best table, the best plates, setting, the whole 9 yards, right? And then once your guests come and the food is made, it's over. You've done everything that you do, right? So that's what making beer is to me. It's that the yeast are the honored guests coming into my brewery or into my barrel or my foeder. And all I can do is make the most beautiful living conditions, you know, temperature, music, which yeast love music. You know,
is that right?
Yeah, they get down, you know, you know, if you've got music, they stay up, you know what I'm saying? So music, temperature, the general environment, you know, the right conditions, the right food, of course. And then once that's all prepared, it's over. They're doing all the magic. You know, people say the brewer makes the beer. The brewer does not make the beer. The yeast makes the beer. The brewer makes the wort. We make, you know, we take barley, make barley tea, and then serve it to the yeast, and then they take that and make beer. They make the alcohol.
So the wort is basically like the sugar.
That's right.
Is that effectively what you're getting at?
You start with the barley grain, and you're extracting the sugar in a solution, cool it down, give it to the yeast. And then they eat that, create CO2 and alcohol as a byproduct, and all these beautiful flavors.
So we'll get to see you'll take us on a tour back there of the barrels and the foeder, but what happens in the barrels, just technically, what happens in the barrels and what happens in the foeders, or is it the same thing?
It's kind of the same, but different scale.
Okay.
I use the foeders and the barrels for both primary fermentation vessels and secondary and tertiary. Okay. So just depending on what I'm doing at what time.
Sure.
But a lot, you know, most breweries use stainless steel for fermentation, which
I've seen a lot of that.
Super common. You know, it's a lot easier to clean and sanitize. Control's the main thing.
Right.
We don't particularly want a lot of control here. We basically just want to make delicious beer, you know. But control, you know, people say, oh, what's your flagship, or, you know, is this going to taste like the last one? No, not at all. And that's what we want, because again, the yeast are in charge. And generation 2 and generation 3 of the yeast, you know, the grandson is different than the grandfather. So he's going to make different beer than the grandfather. So they, you know, they change.
Does that make you nervous at all? Because it seems to me that's kind of risky, right? Like,
it's super
risky. Because you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's one thing to not know what you're going to get when you're working out of your garage, but when you actually have a commercial operation where you've got to produce, Does that keep you up at all, or?
Well, now that you mention it, it might start keeping me up, but no, not really. I mean,
sorry to put that in your head, but
no. I mean, you know, other breweries that I've built were a lot more control oriented, and you know, this batch tastes exactly like the last batch, which that kept me up at night. There's no soul in it. You know, if you buy a loaf of bread that's made with someone's hands as opposed to made by a machine, it's different. You can't fool people, you know.
Yeah.
So
magic is magic, man.
Yeah, you got to keep the magic in there.
Do you mind if could I try some of that
Sure.
Versace? The perks of filming at a brewery are many.
Yeah, no doubt.
This being one of them.
Right here.
So I don't know if we can get a close up of this. It's got a beautiful dark and a light amber color.
All those
Looks
colors,
like, cherry skins.
all that color actually comes from the tree. So we started, the base beer was a blonde beer.
Wow.
And as we filtered the beer over the tree bark and the sprigs, it picked up that color.
So this is like literally the color. Cheers. Man.
That's right, cheers.
Thank you.
That's the color.
The
Sequoia.
resin from the bark and
The great one, the giant ancient one.
Wow. Yeah, you definitely get the sour.
I feel like
on the nose.
if I was a 2,000-year-old tree and they saw what they saw, think about it. How much history has happened while that tree was alive, right? And then he passed away. If I was that tree, I would be honored that somebody make a beer out of just a little piece of my bark or something.
Totally, man.
You know,
it's a great afterlife.
Yeah.
We should all hope for something.
Yeah, I think if you make a beer out of me, it's not going to taste.
I don't know, man. You're a pretty sweet man. Wow. God, that is delicious.
You really taste it, the essence.
Yeah. It's just deep and rich. It's earthy.
Mm-hmm.
It tastes as deep as it looks, is what I will say.
Yeah.
You know, it's...
We actually developed a new adjective because of this beer, because I was here with a couple customers and they were trying it and they were, you know, trying to describe it, and one of them said it was very tree-y.
Tree-y. I love it. On the nose, I get hints of tree.
Yeah, it's very tree. You don't know when to stop. Tree.
Well, that's just beautifully done. It's just got like a really nice, lingering deliciousness.
Yeah.
You should be. Yeah, I'm sure you were psyched when you first tried this.
Yeah, I mean, I had never brewed with a Sequoia before, so
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was going to taste like.
I just, in general, I used to build furniture, so I love, I love visually, obviously, the character of the wood, but the smell of it.
Oh yeah, me too.
When you're, you know, hand planing it, when you're sanding it, even when a saw goes through it and it heats the wood.
That's magical.
And you get the perfume of the wood, because you get a little bit of the char from like a bandsaw, for instance.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And every wood, like walnut has a certain character, cherry has a certain character.
We did a lot of infusions with wood in Brazil. My first brewery was in Brazil on the island Itaparica, which is a tropical, beautiful island. And we're right on the beach, and lots of fishermen on the island still, and they build their own boats, you know, with hand tools, the way that their grandfathers did it when they were whaling there 500 years ago. There was an island called a Quilombo where the African slaves escaped from the sugarcane plantations from the mainland in Salvador, made their way across the bay to some of the islands out there, which were inhabited by vicious Guarani Indians, but they took the African slaves in, and you know, they basically became their own race, and they were great fishermen and whalers back in the day. So these guys still built their boats the same way out of jaca tree, you know, jackfruit. It's a naturally water seal wood, so you don't have to put varnish on or anything.
Do they dig it out, or do they burn it, or?
No. Just cut the jaca tree down, make lumber out of it.
Oh, I see.
Dry it, and it's ready to go. You don't have to seal it with nothing. It's ready for the ocean.
Wow.
So these guys were building the boat right by the ocean. And my brewery's here. There's a little trail to the beach, and these guys are right there every day for a month, you know, hand hewing this wood out. And I would collect all the shavings, and I made a beer out of it. So the night before I brewed the beer, I put all those shavings into the hot liquor tank, the hot water tank, and just made a tea out of the jaca shavings.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
In the morning, it was deep orange, like burnt umber, like gorgeous. I mean, almost like this. Just the water with the. I mean, it tasted amazing just by itself. I was like, wow, okay, let's make beer out of this. I mean, it was, and it blew people's mind. It was like, wow, like holy crap.
Wow.
So just that wood, you know, I mean, there's a lot to be done with that. Even, you know, making teas out of woods and things like that. That the people like you and myself who love wood,
right?
You know, just the sight, the smell, the taste, whatever. Give it to me.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. But yeah, pretty cool.
And it's kind of cool to think about pulling the life, you know, that dead tree, for instance, like taking it in.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Kind of.
It's almost, you know,
communing with it. And then our gut biome.
Oh, that's
is also like another living biome where things happen, and so.
Yeah, maybe you can get a little wisdom from that tree.
I think about it, especially a few beers in. I really think about that kind of stuff, you know. Like,
I feel smarter.
Right. So, I wanted to just wrap up here in a little bit, but I wanted to just get a sense for the things that inspire you. Like it takes, I don't know about you, but for me to share my work, to put it out there, takes energy.
Yeah.
Like you kind of put your heart and soul into something, no matter what that is, no matter what your medium, it takes energy to do that. So how do you personally recharge? Like, where do you get inspiration? Where do you find your sort of grounding?
I love to create. That's recharging. I mean, even I love to work. You know, it sounds crazy, but you know, my mom. You met my mom. My mom is a monster. She's a beast. She's
a force of nature.
She's almost 80 years old. She works right next to me all day. No, when she comes to visit, she's like, "All right, what are we doing today?" And like, "What are we painting the ceiling?" She's out on the ladder. I'm like, "Take it easy." She's like, you can't stop her.
Yeah.
You can't.
I can. I don't know your mom very well, but she's a force of nature.
Yeah, so I got part of that from her. I don't know what that is, but you know, I pop up in the morning and I'm like, all right, let's get at it. I can't wait to come to the brewery and get at it. Whether I'm building a new wall or brewing beer or you know, putting solar panels on or whatever, because I'm creating. I realized in my life, if I'm creating, I'm happy. Making money doesn't. You can hand me a briefcase of $1 million. I'll be like, thanks. I would put it right there and then just continue. I'd drink I wouldn't be like, oh yeah. I wouldn't. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't move me for whatever reason. You know. So, being happy and making stuff, I realized through life, it's like when I'm building or cooking or doing, if I'm making something out of nothing, that's happy for me. And for everybody, it's different. But for me, that's what it is. Like finding a pile of lumber in a dumpster. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I could light up, you know, because it's like, oh man, I'm gonna make this table and build I see it instantly. I'm like, it's already built. And I'm like, all right, let's get it back into the brewery. And now all I have to do is physically do it, but it's already done. You know what I'm saying? So
that's awesome.
Manifesting stuff makes me happy. Getting an idea, I go home, I think about stuff, and read something like, oh, got it. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Write it down. Now I can't sleep.
I feel like we think of the term work ethic is an interesting one. because I think we applaud people with it, and and people that don't have it are, you know, they don't. They're lazy or whatever.
Yeah.
But we think of work ethic so often as like, this person has an ability to grin and bear their work, to tolerate their work longer than the next guy or gal. And what you're saying is different. What you're saying is, my work is my pleasure, is my recharging, is my
my inspiration.
Dare we say relaxation? Like,
absolutely. There's a lot of things that you can do with your life, a million different things or more.
Yeah.
So if you don't like what you're doing, stop now and change, like figure yourself out, dig deep, and then go for it no matter what. You're going to eat dirt. I ate dirt for years. I was in Brazil opening my first 2 breweries with no money. Sometimes I would sell a keg of beer and then go get something to eat because I hadn't eaten. Like, it was that tight for a while. But I was loving it. I was making beer on the beach. I was looking at the ocean, brewing beer in Brazil and producing samba, and, you know, sure, I'm not starving to death. I'm fine. I'm living the dream. You know, people say, oh, you lived in tropical island, must have been amazing. Yeah, but it was hard as shit, you know? I got assaulted, I got robbed, I got thrown in jail, I got beat up, you know, they starved, the whole thing. Got, you know, dengue twice, got yellow fever, you know, it's like, that shit was hard, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
wow, man.
Because you gotta do it. What are you gonna do, stay in your hometown forever and be like, oh, it's safe here,
Right.
I know everybody. Like, go out there, do something, find out what's in it for you, you know? And I think without traveling, I would have been a totally different person. I would have just been in Pennsylvania right now. God bless Pennsylvania.
Oh, totally.
Nothing
man.
wrong with it.
I'm from Pennsylvania too.
Right.
Yeah, God bless Pennsylvania.
So, but, you know, the world it's your world. People say, oh, why do you go to these godforsaken countries, third world? That's my planet. I don't think of it as Brazil. I don't think of it as Paraguay. It's my planet. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to meet the rest of my family. We're all on the same rock.
There's something about it that feels familiar. I don't know if that's true for you, but for me, it's like, oh, this is another place on the planet where people are making their way.
Yeah.
With their friends and their family, with their, you know, they're living their lives, or doing their laundry.
Sure, doing the laundry, making dinner.
Right, and it's like, it sort of demystifies. We think of like, I don't know, I know some people that think of going around the corner as a scary proposition.
Right.
I think it's a good reminder for all of us to get out of our own little orbits when we can.
Absolutely.
And
there's so much to be learned out there. I mean, even from a child, you know. I think the most important thing in life is to keep the eternal student alive inside yourself. You know, people say, oh, you make great beer. I don't know shit. I don't. I'm just, you know, I'm learning every day. You know, just because it comes out good, there's a lot I don't understand. I really don't. There's a lot going on back there. You look under a microscope, it's a whole different thing than what I think it is. But, you know, you do what you can, but every day you learn. Just say, I don't know, but I want to learn.
This is the cask.
Yep, cask
It's an
conditioner.
IPA out of a cask.
Yeah, we basically naturally carbonate it, and it's fermented and carbonated in the cask. So it's kind of English style technology, but with West Coast style beer.
And what are the hops that you use in that, or is that a trade secret?
That one, no. I use some New Zealand hops, Green Bullet, Pacific Gem, some Mosaic, some El Dorado.
Psyched about this one. The first time I had this beer, I was just so pleasantly surprised.
Well, you can see with the head here how creamy it is. You never get that with forced carbonation. So
so this is right. This is naturally carbonated.
Yeah.
That's insane, and that's not just because there's a lot of protein in here. This is from the.
No, that's from the cask
this is
conditioner.
from the cask, yeah. Super bright.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Fruit.
Yeah, fruity, tropical, nice bitterness.
It has like just depth to it. It's not just heady, piney,
Yeah.
resininess. It's got like a
very-
huge root system under it.
Yeah, it does.
Is how it tastes like, you know.
I like the roundness of it. You know, there's not a lot of no sharp edges on it.
Yeah, it's you have the bitterness, but it's not just bitter.
Yeah, but you also get a little of the bitterness in the head from the yeast bite. There's a tiny bit of yeast bite in there from the, you know,
Yeah.
the cask conditioning, which is nice. Everything is naturally carbonated. But I feel like there's no comparison to the flavor, you know, of a naturally carbonated versus a forced carbonated beer. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't beat Mother Nature.
God, the head is just like, it ain't going anywhere. It's
And then
just
look
there.
at the lacing on the glass. It's gorgeous.
Let's get her on this camera here.
You know, all the lacing here, that's all the proteins and the lipids sticking on there.
Slow beer made in LA. That's
right.
River Brewing. One of the things that you touched on, but we didn't really get into, and could you share a little bit about your sustainability practices
sure.
here? Like that's kind of huge.
Yeah.
And unconventional for a brewery.
Yeah, it's one of the centerpieces, I think, of Dry River is our sustainability. The main thing, I mean, there's a whole list of things we could talk about, but the main thing is water. You know, especially in Southern California, you know, water is a huge issue. Anywhere in the world, clean water is going to be the most valuable resource in the near future, period. Forget gasoline.
Yeah.
You know, you can not drive your car, but you need water.
Totally.
And that's, you know, we're really messing that up. But anyway, so we do a solar thermal heating device on the roof, which provides all the processed hot water for brewing beer. We actually get too hot, we have to mix down with cold water.
Really?
Yeah, so that's huge. Breweries need a lot of water, period, but hot water especially. So that's probably the main energy savings that we do. Aside from steam cleaning, we switched to steam almost immediately. Once I got 40 wine barrels in one time, and I had to, you know, rinse and swell them all up to make sure that they were, you know, good. And I did, you know, the calculate, it's thousands of gallons of water to do that.
Totally.
And I said, no, I can't. So I invested in, you know, building a steam generator so I could use, instead of literally 100 or 240 gallons of water just to swell one barrel, and then not including rinsing it and sanitizing, you're talking 500 liters per barrel to recommission a barrel. It's a lot of water down the drain.
Totally.
So instead, with a steam generator, I can clean, sanitize, and recommission it with about 2 liters of water. So to me, that's huge. I mean, I hate pouring water down a drain. It breaks my heart. I can't take it.
Yeah.
You know, just like seeing it go down the drain. So, you know, those two are the biggest things we do. Also, just simple things like, you know, locally sourcing ingredients is huge. We have a farm up here that we work with just right down the street, Mott Street Urban Farm, where we grew hops last year. We didn't do it this year.
Wow.
Because we've been too busy.
So there's like a local supply chain for this stuff. It's not
Oh, yeah.
like you have to go to Seattle to get it,
No.
or Washington State.
Well, you do. I mean,
Yeah.
certain things we have to get, like
Yeah.
like barley, you can't get from around here. It's
Yeah.
too hot to grow barley. But things that we can get, we do. And we forage for a lot. I mean, a lot of the ingredients are foraged. I can name 10 different beers that I've foraged, you
It's
know.
a trip, yeah.
Like even our lava beer, which people love, which is Stein beer, which is, we got the lava rocks. So we heat the lava rocks up, you know, to white hot outside on the sidewalk in our grill with
That's
natural
amazing.
mesquite wood, and get them white hot, then put that into the wort, and it spontaneously starts boiling and caramelizing, and you know, people lose their mind. I mean, nobody does that anymore. That's an old German technique that they did before, before you had a metal brew kettle, you couldn't put a fire under a wooden brew kettle.
Totally,
You burn your... So they figured out a way to heat the wort up by dropping in giant heated lava rock into the wooden brew kettle, and it would start boiling, and you're done. So, you know...
That's wild, man. It's for a small business, again, to do things that are sort of labor intensive in that way.
Yeah, but it's super fun.
Labor and time intensive.
But you know, the thing is, to me, it's not. That's not labor intensive at all. That's fun as hell. It's dangerous, and I love it.
It could go really wrong.
It could go completely wrong.
Yeah.
You could kill yourself.
Right.
You know, but it makes great beer, and it's a great story. People love that. Like they see, we did a video of it. People are like, "You guys are insane! Like that looks really dangerous." They're like, yeah, it was. But you know, I'm a little kid. You know, I love that kind of stuff. The adventure of it. The science, the exploration, the student comes out. You know, it's like, oh, what if we did this next time? You know, and then what if we, you know, superheated them until it became magma, then poured it in. Like, you know?
Yeah, you do. You got to keep the beard so you can keep, you know,
pondering,
scheming, run your hands through the beard, or the beard. So you have some. Talk to me about like what the importance of surrounding yourself with good people. Like you've got a great staff. I haven't met your business partners, but
they're amazing.
They're of the same mind, presumably.
Sure.
Talk to me about like the importance of surrounding yourself with people that are like aligned.
Well, I feel like it's the most important thing. I mean, that's why I'm here. I mean, I couldn't be in this, I wouldn't do this if I had to be surrounded by a bunch of miserable people who didn't care, and I just couldn't do it. That's not me. I mean, I'm at the point in my life where if it's not like that, I leave instantly. It's like, oh no.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm blessed with two great partners. You know, it's a husband and wife, you know, it's literally a mom and pop shop plus Naga. So it's three of us.
Plus the brother from another mother.
Right, you know. But you know, Vonda runs a yoga studio, and Dave runs a sustainability business. You know, where he retrofits giant, you know, industrial complexes and buildings. You know, like Heinz ketchup and stuff like that, and greens their whole building.
That's amazing.
So he's been doing this already professionally for a while.
A wizard in his own right. And
oh yeah, and you know, great compliment to my talents. You know, because you know, I like to focus on being the madman, the mad scientist, and I don't want to talk to the banker. I don't want to talk to the accountant.
Yeah,
you know,
and you get free reign to do that.
It's a great, you know, team that we have. Everybody, you know, recognizes their talents and their strengths, and as a team, you can do it. You can get a lot done if everybody respects each other and, you know, works together as a team. It's amazing. So, I mean, having the right people around you is vital. I mean, somebody good around you can change your life. Somebody bad around you can ruin your life. So, it's pretty important.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know where that sort of instinct comes from. I think there are people in my life that I feel like can really, and I think it's a function of life experience. It's a function of, like you're saying, eating shit for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe meeting the wrong people.
Yep.
And traveling the world, meeting new people, working with different people, and then you kind of get a feel for, like,
you get real...
This is gonna work, or this is totally, you know, let's cut our losses. But,
it's, you know, living in the jungle, like, you know, you actually live in the jungle like I did. I lived in, people say, oh, you're in the jungle. No, the real jungle. Not Guns N' Roses.
Homeboy got yellow fever. Homeboy got dengue fever.
Yeah, so I was running the bar with dengue fever. People were like, Naga, you gotta go, you're gonna die. I'm like, no, I gotta run the brewery. And I'm brewing beer, I'm like hallucinating. I'm like, what's this? Dinosaurs, what is dinosaurs everywhere? No, but
spiking a crazy fever. Jeez, man.
But, you know, if you go through those kind of things and, you know, you make it out, you know, you get wisdom.
We'll wrap up here in a sec, but what do you hope Dry River, your work with your so it's Vonda and David, right? What do you hope to do collectively in your community? Like, What are your aspirations?
We have several. I mean, sustainability is one of the main things. I'd love to be an inspiration to everybody, not just brewers, but especially brewers, because when I came to Southern California for the first time, I imagined solar panels in every house, and I don't see any.
No.
It's shocking. So I'm the first brewery, to have solar thermal. Like, hello guys, like wake up. What are you doing? You're paying all this electric, and it's like the sun is cooking you up there.
So the economics are there.
The economics are absolutely there, and you're saving, instead of burning coal to create electricity to heat your water, the sun's just there. Like, hello guys, free energy. It's mind-boggling to me. So that part, for me, I'm very passionate about that. Trying to make this little brewery a showpiece. When brewers come over, or just a normal person, say, wow, like, so I could put that solar thermal device in my house and get free hot water for my showers and for my laundry and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah. For sustainability, to be a model, to show people how to use these technologies or to utilize them. And then, socially, to, like we had talked about before, to be an open-hearted place, which sounds simple and maybe trite, but it's not, if you really think about it. Because if you're out here driving around traffic in LA and you hear open-hearted, you'd be like, what's open-hearted? Where is this place? Like, you can come and be, say hello, and somebody will say, hey, how are you? What's your name?
Right.
Like, whoa, are you fucking with me?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. I'm passionate about this too. I think it's high time to stop BSing and saying, when you say something like open-hearted, is to stop qualifying that as some, like, woo-woo thing.
Yeah.
But it's an actual practice.
Yeah. It's not gooey, it's not...
No. It's an actual practice that actually generates value for everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, I don't know if you're the same way, but when I travel, even within the United States, if I say I'll go to San Francisco tomorrow on business, and I'll have like a couple hours to walk around the city, I'm super friendly in San Francisco. Not just San Francisco, but anywhere where I'm a tourist, I'll be like, hey, good morning, hey.
Right.
And people are very friendly to me because I'm friendly. But then I come back to LA and I'm miserable. Nobody says anything and they're miserable back. What happened to saying good morning? Try it. It works.
Yeah.
I mean, you might get snubbed in LA.
I've gotten snubbed for sure.
But you can't stop. You can't be like, what? I'm not saying good morning anymore, because 90% of the people don't say anything.
Right.
And then
people.
Eventually, everybody stops.
Right.
That will happen.
The walls go up.
Right. If that one person who used to say good morning stopped, now nobody's saying good morning. Even if you say good morning, the guy doesn't say good morning, he feels like a dick. He's like, oh, I should have said good morning. Yeah. It's subconscious.
Yeah.
And then eventually, everybody's saying good morning again. How are you? How are you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. You okay? Yeah, man, thanks. It's easy to be nice. It's fun to be nice.
Yeah. It is fun, and it's I love that you've created a little like mini a space here where that's, I don't know if you remember the show Cheers.
Of course. Right? I've seen every episode.
Right, I probably have too, but like, cheers for the people that don't know what it is, because there are people that don't know what it is.
You can't tell me that wasn't an influence on my life.
It was an amazing show about...
It was a family.
A family coming together every day in this bar in Boston, on the Boston Common.
Yeah.
Where it was okay to be... You, vulnerable, be a fool, be friendly, be stupid, be smart.
And everybody loved you.
It's interesting, I feel like you've created a space where people have carte blanche to be themselves and be a part of the community. This elixir that you have here is part of that Venn diagram of bringing people together, and it's I love that the community piece, the interpersonal piece, is as significant as the beer is, and that your process is as significant as the product, and that it's not just about selling as many of these as possible. You've gotten us to think about what it means to be a member of a community, and bring some wisdom and presence of mind and clarity to that. And so I so appreciate
my pleasure, man.
the effort, and I really hope, cheers, man, and I really hope people, LA is a vast expanse, but I hope you take the time to like come visit and share a glass of beer and talk with a stranger, because it's all
they're really not a stranger.
You'll find out a stranger.
You'll find out very quick.
And it's all within the realm of possibility here. In fact, it's encouraged.
That's right.
So yeah, man, all the best, and
Yes,
I hope to check in, in the future, and
Absolutely.
check back in. I'll be here often. So.
I'll see you every weekend.
Yeah, quite possibly. So that's a wrap for episode 1, everybody. Thanks for staying tuned and listening, and we hope you get out and get to know your community.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the message.
Yeah.
Get outside, get out of your orbit, try something new, and I think you'll be surprised. So thanks so much, and see you in the next episode.
And pay attention.
Pay attention. That's right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, brother.
So here we are.
Okay. Welcome to the Barrel Room. This is where all the magic happens at Dry River. As you can see behind me, we're immersed in a sea of oak. We do all of our fermentation in oak as opposed to stainless steel. These stainless steel vessels are only used for cuvées and mixes, which we'll explain a little bit later. But come over this way. We'll take a look at our fooders here. These 2 fooders are some new arrivals to Dry River. These are American oak fooders from the Ozark Mountains of the United States. So these were custom built for Dry River. As you can see right now, this one is fermenting like crazy.
What is that sound we're hearing, Naga?
Basically, what's happening right now, yesterday we brewed a 16-barrel batch of Imperial Saison over at our friends at Boomtown Brewery, right across the river from us. And we transported it across the bridge in the back of my friend John's truck in 3 trips. And pumped the wort into this foeder and added our blend of Saison, Brettanomyces, and house cultures, including a Boyle Heights wild yeast. And what you hear right now is the yeast having a literal orgy and feast in there. They're really happy in this foeder. So they're basically eating all the sugar and transforming it into alcohol and CO2.
Naga, why oak and not stainless steel again? What's behind that choice?
Well, oak breathes, first of all, so obviously this is a porous substance, Stainless steel does not breathe. So this vessel is actually respirating on a very low frequency. I love wood, and I'm a carpenter. I feel like it's a very noble substance. I mean, just looking at this vessel right here, it really just does something to me spiritually. I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, these were trees standing in the forest. If you look at a piece of stainless steel, it's a beautiful vessel, it's hermetic, it's sanitary, but it doesn't breathe, it doesn't have a spirit, it doesn't have a history.
And so what are we doing here? We're pulling what?
We're pulling a gravity sample of the Imperial Saison, which we brewed yesterday, and is very excited to be fermenting. Just going to test taste it and see how much work the yeast has done.
What are we testing with?
We're testing with a hydrometer. So basically, this is going to show you how much sugar is in the solution here. Yesterday we started out 17.5 Plato, which is a measurement of how much sugar is in the solution. Fermentation started about 4 hours ago, and we're already at under 15 Plato. So if you want to come in here, I'll give you a little sneak peek about some of the individual characters that are at work in the brewery. Each barrel has a different name and yeast pedigree, date when it was commissioned by Dry River. So this one, for example, is called Quilombo, which is a Afro-Brazilian word for a freed slave community that, you know, continued African culture as free people in Brazil, in the jungles and the islands. Each one has a different name. Imaho, which is a tantric Buddhist word for wow. It's true. This one is Tiburão Preto, which
sounds Portuguese.
That's Portuguese for black shark. Excuse the mess. This is Lampião. It's the husband of Maria Bonita. They lived in Brazil several hundred years ago. They were the first revolutionaries of Brazil after the Africans. They were from the poor people in the interior when the Portuguese were enslaving everybody and starving people out. Lampião, read the book.
Why do you name these so sort of significantly? Why not just name them A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4? What's that? What does the name nomenclature do for you?
Why?
Yeah.
Would you name your daughter ABC? Or your son B or D? This is Janaína. Each one of these has these are very special, man. They're not just a wooden barrel sitting in a warehouse somewhere. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into the contents of this. So each vessel has its own identity, just like a person. Its own life, its own story, the beers that pass through it, the yeasts, the steaming. There's a lot happened here. Janaína, goddess of the sea. It's important. That way I care about them. It's not barrel A, I don't give a shit about barrel A. Janaína, I care about Janaína. Yeah? Lampião.
That's cool, man. It seems like everything in here has some significance. It's never just, nothing's an accident. Everything's got your hand on it.
Well, it's not my hand. It's just that if something doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean anything. So if you're going to do something, give it meaning. Otherwise, nobody cares. You don't care. You put barrel A, I don't give a shit. Janaína, I know a Janaína in Brazil. I know the story. I went kayaking and I saw her in the water. I know her. Every time I see that, it invokes something in me. It remembers a part of my history, something that happened, so I care. So that's why I do it. I can easily organize them with A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. But now, each one of these, we can talk about them, just like you talk about your friend. So I know Lampião, I know what he does. Sometimes he does this, sometimes he does that. He creates this kind of flavor profile. I know him. I know what she does.